Democrats are vowing an aggressive response to the president's declaration of national emergency to get more money to build the wall. Here now is Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters on Friday.
It's time for everybody to stand up, all hands on deck, to refuse this president these fake emergency powers that he'd like to have. And so I'm urging everybody, get together, rally in every community across this country all this weekend. Send a message to Washington, D.C.
And a number of Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate say that they object to the president's plan as well, some calling it an overreach of executive power. Joining me right now in an exclusive interview is Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me back, Maria.
Is this a national emergency? Your reaction to what's happening with the president saying that it's a national emergency, but some of your colleagues are pushing back.
Well, first of all, does the president have the authority? And the answer is yes. Since 1976, when the law passed, presidents have declared more than 60 emergencies. But also look to this. When the federal government does an act, governors have the responsibility that they can declare an emergency. And in 2005 in Arizona, Janet Napolitano, who then became DHS Secretary for Obama, declared an emergency because of what was happening on the border. So did New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson. And Bill Richardson cited the lack of movement by the federal government. So the president, one, has the authority. Yes, it is a crisis and emergency along our border. First of all, think about the human trafficking that is happening.
Yeah.
Think about the children that are being moved across these countries. But think about the amount of drugs and how many thousands of Americans are dying, and most of that is coming through the southern border. So the president, one, has the authority. Yes, it is an emergency that has been shown before. And I believe at the end of the day, this wall is going to be built, not sea to shining sea, but about 200 miles.
Well,
he's got the appropriations that was just passed.
Yeah.
He's got 55 miles there. Then he has other abilities to pool money, such as from the Treasury, the forfeiture. This is from illicit crimes that people have done. So he's got about $600 million there. He's got $2.5 billion from inside Department of Defense to be used for counter narcotics to fight drugs as well. This is where that should be used. And then he's looking at MILCONs, the military construction items.
So this is about $3 billion roughly that he can use other monies from other areas. But the overall bill was a lot lower, as you know, than what the president wanted. He wanted $5.7 billion, but you still voted yes for it.
Yes, I did, because you know what? It was a down payment moving forward. Remember this. Just about a month ago, what was Nancy Pelosi saying? Only $1 for the wall, that they would eliminate beds, which would mean criminals would be left out into our society, and they would abolish ICE. ICE has just received more money than they ever had in the past. We have the ability to keep the number of beds we had before, and they just voted for $1.375 billion, 55 miles of new wall. So if I'm weighing that compared to a continuing resolution, which would not get any, of course, this is moving it in the right direction. Is it as far as I want it to go? No. But the combination of this bill and the action what the president is doing, we're getting to the end result that we need to protect the southern end of our border.
Let me move on and ask you about this meeting that the president has called today and tomorrow for members of his trade team. The China talks are going to be continuing next week. And, of course, then you've got USMCA on the table. A lot of colleagues in the House have told me on the Democratic side they won't vote for it as it is. First, talk to us about how the China talks went and what you'd like to see in terms of a deal between China and the United States as these talks continue this upcoming week.
Well, I haven't been able to get an update since they've come back from China, but I was talking to Lighthizer and others before going. I want to credit this president because he is really moving against China and making for a level playing field is something that America should have done a long time ago. The entire Western Hemisphere should have been able to do this. But what I find is that we are getting movement to where we need to do to protect our intellectual property rights, to have a fair and level playing field when it comes to trade. And I'm seeing good movement, so the president wants to have an update, continue those talks in Washington next week. And I think the entire world is watching that this would put us on a better stage to compete against China at the same time with a level playing field.
Is he going to have to change USMCA in order to get that ratified?
Okay, now that's different. That's between Canada and Mexico. I'm not sure that he will. For those Democrats who are saying that they wouldn't vote for it, I'm not sure they read it or seen it because nothing's been rolled out completely. This is looking at NAFTA and improving it, modernizing it. I think at the end of the day, they will support it because it's going to make not only America stronger, but our trading partners as well. It is a good policy for American jobs, and it's stronger in, one, when you're modernizing it, protecting our intellectual property as well.
Let me move on to some of the big news over the weekend. Congressman, you sent a letter to Adam Schiff, now the chairman of the Intel Committee. We know that Adam Schiff has said for a long time, he said this 2 years ago, that he has more than circumstantial evidence that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. And we also know that this past week we got news from the Senate where the Senate said there was all of its findings after a two-year period. They have found no collusion. Explain the letter that you sent to Adam Schiff and what you're trying to do.
I put it out on a blog, and what I raised questions about Adam Schiff. Yes, you state that in March 2017 he said he had this proof. He sounds like a modern-day Joe McCarthy and can't produce anything as we move through. We've had the Senate and the House investigate this and say there is no collusion from Republicans and Democrats. But you know what we recently found out, Maria, and I've got to thank you because this is something that you have been monitoring the entire time and bringing out information on. We now find that Adam Schiff met with Glenn Simpson, the co-founder of Fusion GPS, the individual that created that fake dossier, in Aspen, which was never been known to us. First of all, what did they meet about? And this was after the committee wanted to look into Glenn Simpson even further because the credibility of the answers he gave when he came before the committee. Then think about this. I want to know, what did they talk about there? How many other times have they met? But why did Adam Schiff fight when we wanted to find out who paid Fusion GPS? Well, we found out that it was the Democrat National Committee. But why did Adam Schiff fight that? And then why did Adam Schiff ask Glenn Simpson in the hearing, what should we investigate? Where should we go? Why is he taking direction from this individual that does not have credibility, that created a fake dossier? And then Adam Schiff, who is now the chairman, why doesn't he hold himself to the same standards that he asked Jeff Sessions and Devin Nunes? He should recuse himself based upon meeting with an individual that we're looking at from creating the Fusion GPS, from Fusion GPS, and not even telling us. In that part, the bias of what's going forward, he should recuse himself from any future investigation or being the chairman.
This is, of course, the guy who was paid, his firm was paid $1 million to create that dossier. Bruce Orr's wife worked at that firm. Glenn Simpson running the firm, Fusion GPS, that created that dossier, which was used to wiretap an American citizen, Carter Page. And we know that it was unverified and salacious, which is what Jim Comey called it.
And remember what Adam Schiff said, because he said Devin Nunes met with somebody at the White House. He had to recuse himself. Remember Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, had to recuse himself because he met with some Russian he didn't really even realize when he went through. Now we're knowing from the Hill that Adam Schiff knew who he was meeting with, Glenn Simpson, in Aspen. What did they meet about? Even after the committee knew they had to investigate Glenn Simpson further because the credibility of the answers he gave inside the hearing. They contradicted. He could be lying before Congress based upon investigation and answers given by other individuals.
Right. And now, of course, we all know that Hillary Clinton paid his firm, Fusion GPS, to create that dossier when we didn't know the specifics before.